grabbing your beer and grabbing my coat. We about to sit for an hour, bullshit and tell jokes. And please don't mix it up, cause he done sobered up. Brandon T Comedy on your social media feeds. And Brandon Taz, if it's your ex drinking buddy. Brandon Taz, if it's your ex drinking buddy. Brandon Taz, if it's your ex drinking buddy. Brandon Taz, if it's your ex drinking buddy.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into another edition of Brennan Tassif is your ex-drinking buddy. I'm your host, Brennan Tassif. If you're new to the show, quick rundown of the show. I used to be everyone's favorite drinking buddy. It was my favorite thing to do. Hang out with friends, get drunk, do drugs, get in all sorts of trouble, and reminisce about fun old stories. I am sober now, but that is still one of my favorite things to do. Hang out with a friend and reminisce about crazy old stories. Most weeks I'll be joined by a guest. This week is no exception. I am joined by hilarious comedian Caitlin Peluffo.
Hi, how's it going?
It's awesome. How are you?
I'm good.
Fantastic. Before we get too far into anything, I know you have a podcast. I know you've been touring. Plug everything up front. This will come out in about 10 days.
Sure. At Caitlin Peluffo on all the things. Instagram is the most important because that's where my link tree is with all my shows. I'm on the road every single weekend in July. So make sure you come check. I'm going to Connecticut, Alameda, other places that I can't think of right now. That's why just go to the link tree. And then I have a podcast very similar to this called Good Time Gal.
Yes.
Where I interview comics, my friends, about drinking stories. So I'm never on this side of the table. This is exciting.
I know. I'm excited to have you on because when I first moved to New York, it was around the time that Sam's documentary came out.
Yes.
And you were in that talking about how you just got passed at the cellar. Mm-hmm. And I remember I got here and literally, like my second day here, I went to the, because I hang out way too much at the stand, but it's a long story. But I went to the stand and you were on a show and I was like, who the hell is this? Because you're so energetic. You have so much energy. And from that moment, I was like, oh, she's hilarious. Like I need to follow her on everything. And then I saw your podcast and I was like, what is this? It's like, this is my show.
Yeah, I know.
And so ever since then, so I've been here for 11 months now, but when that happened in the back of my head, I was like, one day I got to get Caitlin on the podcast.
Yeah, for sure.
We obviously have a lot of things in common. You're a former college athlete. I'm a former college athlete. Some of the stories that you tell, be it on stage or when I was talking to Steven, because we had him on the podcast, your fiance. Dun, dun, dun. We were talking about how you do like to drink and stuff. And I was like, oh yeah, this is going to be fun. So since you're new to this show, I know a lot of people know kind of your background and stuff just because you are so popular, but just tell everybody kind of how you got into stand-up, like how that whole thing started. Because as a former athlete, I always find that fascinating, the transition to go from super competitive, like alpha, to like, hey, I'm going to get on stage and talk about...
Be extremely vulnerable.
Yeah. Exactly.
Well, stand-up is something I always loved. I grew up watching stand-up.
Okay.
My favorite comic was Dane Cook in high school, as was everybody's.
Yes,
right?
Mine too.
And Chelsea Handler. Those, I loved them. I could have watched Chelsea Lately every night for the rest of my life. And
I say it all the time. Dane, I got into stand-up and I was watching Mitch Hedberg and Tom Rhodes and stuff, and that never computed because they were hilarious, but that wasn't my style.
Yeah.
I saw Dane on Comedy Central like everybody else did, and I was like, I want to do that.
I want to be the Kool-Aid man. Yeah. 100%.
Naughty Kool-Aid.
And then David Tell.
Yes.
And then that's my favorite. Skanks for the Memory was my favorite thing of all time. But I was a big idiot, and I thought that if you did comedy, you had to go to school for it. I know, isn't that so laughable now? Like I got a undergraduate degree and a master's degree, and the whole time I was doing it, I was like, I would always love to do comedy. And
what did you go to school for?
I went for art.
Okay.
I went undergrad for photography and media arts, media studies or whatever, and then grad school I did video, photography, and performance.
Oh, wow.
Yes. And the whole time I was like, if only I went into writing or something like that, or acting, because that's what I thought you had to do in order to be a comic. And boy, you don't have to do shit.
Anything.
Yeah, you can literally be anyone. I went to my first open mic and I sat in the back and I watched and I was like, oh, I was so wrong.
That happens to me now, and I say it a lot, but that happens to me now. I'll go to certain shows, like produced shows, and I'll be watching because I've talked about it before, but I started in 2009, and then between drugs and arrests and booze, it just it went off the rails, then on the rails, then off the rails. So then when I got sober, I really got back into it, and I was like, I can't move to LA or New York until I get an hour, I get the podcast going. So that's what I worked on tirelessly for 4 years. Then I got here, and everyone was like, "Oh, nobody gives a shit." And I was like, "Oh, cool."
Yeah.
But then same thing though. I'll go to open mics or I'll go to a show at a different club, and I'll watch and I'll go, I'm better than these people. This isn't that hard.
It's wild. I saw a guy, my first open mic, I dragged my ex-boyfriend to come with me, and we sat in the back, and people were like, "You're not going up?" And I was like, "No, I just want to watch." And they're like, "Why?"
Where was this at?
New York Comedy Club before Emilio took it over.
So this was your first... So are you from New York? Are you from the area? Or?
No, I'm from San Francisco, but I moved here for grad school right after undergrad.
Okay.
And then...
so you were in the city. So you started stand-up in New York City.
Yes, which I do not recommend.
Wow. Yeah. That's intense.
Yeah, it was wild. It was great because you could get better, more stage time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Faster. But you need to have I feel like you just need to have a home base, somewhere where people can see you bomb and say all the delinquent shit that you're going to say.
Well, not only that, but I know.
And again, forgive you.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I was going to say, because in the scene that I came from, and I started in South Florida, but I'm a Florida comic. I started in South Florida, I worked in Daytona, and then Jacksonville was kind of my home base when I got sober. And there, because there's not an oversaturation of comedy, the mics are like shows.
Yeah.
Especially some of the newer people will bring all their friends. So there's almost always an audience.
Yeah.
So it turns into this thing where you're like, oh, yeah. Some nights you would literally crush at an open mic and you're like, fuck, I'm fucking killing. Yeah. Then you come to New York and it's like, oh, no, open mics are 5 comics sitting in the back of the room. That's why everyone was so shocked when you're like, no, I'm not going up. I just want to watch.
Yeah. Yeah. They were like, what?
Only comics come to this thing.
I saw a guy have a mental breakdown. He was second to last. He laid down on the stage and just started making noises. He was like, wah, 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 whoa. And one guy was like, I'm going next. What the hell? And I was just watching. I was like, is this real? This is what it is?
Yeah.
This is crazy.
Well, and the other thing too is you'll get some people, and everyone knows this, comedy is my entire life. I moved to New York for it. When I got sober, my whole thing was I was on the edge of relapsing or becoming suicidal because I was like, I don't have a purpose.
Yeah.
And then I got back into comedy. It's the only thing that I've ever cared this much about.
Yeah.
But then I got here. And so I only say that to say, I understand you can treat it as an art, a craft. For some people, it's very important. But then I'll be at open mics and I try so hard to give these comics the benefit of the doubt. I'm like, oh, they're expressing themselves. They're doing them. But in the back of my head, it's still like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah. I try not to judge, I
try not to, but
I'd be like, hey, you're out there. The hard part is doing it, and you're doing it. And you're learning, But it's also but everybody I feel like the first 3 years you do comedy, everything should be wiped away.
Yeah.
You should no one should ever remember anything you said.
Have you ever listened to those sets?
Oh, it's so painful. You want to die.
Yes.
Just want to murder yourself.
I was updating my hard drive the other day and I had some old sets in there. And I literally watched 14 seconds of one of them. And I was like, delete, 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 delete. I was like, I can't. I'm going to throw up.
I watched, what was it? Oh, so when I first started doing comedy, I went through a breakup, and I
was that the gentleman that was with you at the first open mic?
Yes,
okay.
Yes. Turned out not a great guy. But anyway, we don't have to talk about that. I hope you're living well. Whatever. Anyway, so I literally Googled how to start stand-up comedy.
Okay,
I just
That's
Googled
one way
it.
To do it. Absolutely.
Yeah. And Laughing Buddha.
Mm-hmm.
They have these free seminars, and the free seminar came up right away. How to get started in stand-up comedy. Here's a free seminar. So I was like, I'm just going to go. It's free. There's drinks there. It's at a bar. This is perfect, And so I go, and then I couldn't figure out how to get downstairs. I didn't know where it was. I came to the bar. It was at the...
So many times.
Yeah. What was it? It was at the Old Lantern.
Yeah, I was going to say that's...
And then I saw a guy walk downstairs, and I was like, okay, I'll just go downstairs. And I went downstairs, and I sat, and I watched the whole thing, and I learned. I was like, okay, this is manageable. And then at the end of the the seminar, they put everybody's name into a hat, and whoever they pulled got a free class, and they pulled my name.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Now we're cooking.
Now I was like, well, now I have to do it.
Yeah, it's fate.
Yeah, pretty much. It's fate. I was like, holy shit. Okay, I guess all right. I can't. And so
I'm a comic.
I'm a comic now. But I went to my first class, and I didn't know you had to write jokes. This is how sad and pathetic I was. I thought that Dave Attell, Skanks for the Memory, he just was winging it the whole time. I was like, oh, I'd maybe been to one comedy show my whole life.
There are people I bring to either the cellar or the stand, like especially when my girlfriend Savannah's friends are in town. I'm like, oh, we got to go see a show. So we'll go. And I'll see Soder or List or you or like some of the most prolific comics in the world because New York is the center of comedy. Mm-hmm. And they'll watch it and they'll be like, I can't believe they just came up with it. And I'm just like, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, totally.
Honestly, the successful people make it look like they just came up with it.
But and I've even seen there's certain comics who will do the same crowd work at every show. You know, they've got it set in their head and then they'll just find the people in the crowd that look like whatever they want to say. And they'll be like, man, it was the crowd, so it had to be off the top of the head. And I'm like,
no, there's tricks, baby.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I have you do the same jokes long enough that people, if they heckle, how to respond to each one, So you're like, oh, on the 5% chance that they do heckle, I have a response for every single heckle,
And it looks like it's just coming off the top of the head.
I'm just like, I'm going to call you a leprechaun. And, like something like that. Yeah. I don't think I've ever called anyone a leprechaun, but.
For our Irish listeners.
Yeah. Top of the morning to you, or whatever. That was a very bad Irish accent. SNL, don't call. All right.
So you do the class, you show up, no material written.
None.
So did you panic? Did you just wing it? Like what happened?
I went very last and I was trying to write notes because I had always, you daydream about doing comedy.
And since you were such a fan of stand-up, have you always just been like a funny person, like in your group of friends and stuff?
Yeah, I was always the class clown, the loud one. Yeah. I was always loud and obnoxious. Yep. And people were like, Caitlin's being crazy, I
got that.
But I never wrote a joke. I journaled funny thoughts, but never like a set-up punch. And so I went up there and I just kind of riffed. And
how did it go?
I got one laugh.
Okay.
Which... and I was talking about my thighs.
Yeah.
And
do you still do that joke?
That's the thing. It morphed into a joke that I did on Colbert.
It always does.
I know. And I was like, what the fuck? Yeah. And then they had their graduation show. And so I recently watched that tape. Yeah. And I watched that and I was like, oh my God. And then I was like, that's actually a good joke. And then I was like, I got to bring that back. That was good. And then, but I was just like, I can't function. I'm standing still. It's like a far cry from what I have become.
Yeah.
I was just like literally just
not moving?
Not moving at all.
It's so interesting you say that. So I did, when I first moved here, everyone was like, oh, you got to do the industry room. The industry room. That's like kind of the, the freshman, almost like a comedy class, but it's not. Like
Is that Broadway?
Yeah.
Okay.
So like if you've been doing comedy and you don't want to do like, you know what I mean? And you want to do like an actual show and you're new to the area. That's kind of like what you do.
Yeah.
So that's, I did Broadway and because I'm high energy as well. I move all over the stage and I do act outs and all sorts of stuff. Like I've got a story about cutting my own face open in a fight when I was drunk. And like I've got a whole it's a 3-minute bit and I'm everywhere. And I go right before I go to get up, the booker walks up and he goes, he's telling everyone in the room, he goes, you're going to see an X on the stage. We're recording this. So don't move from the X.
Oh my God.
And he says this like as they're calling the first couple comics up.
Kiss
like,
of
don't move from the X. And I've been doing it long enough on and off where I was like, okay, I can, and I made it work. Like I just was very animated in that little, on my mark. But I was like, oh, this joke hits way different when I can't do everything I do. Like it seems more of like an intense story than a joke.
I know. Is this the moth? Jesus. Yeah, it's insane. But when I did Colbert, they literally, Jessica, the booker, she knew that I move around. Yeah. And so they put down tape.
Oh, see, that's awesome.
This is as far as you can go. This is as far left as you can go, but go nuts.
Yeah.
But literally they had to tape out.
Because normally it's just that little X. Yeah. And they're like, that's your mark. And it's like, I need more. I'm going to need a lot more room than that.
She was just like, go for it.
There
and
you
I was
go.
like, okay. And so you literally see me. I'm walking around and my friend Ron Hirschberg, he was like, it's like you're in a club. What are you doing? And I was like, this is who I am.
Oh my God. That's awesome. So what was kind of the start like? And then I want to get back to college and, athletics and all that kind of stuff. But
Sure.
what was the start like in stand-up starting in New York? Were you just hitting open mics like crazy after the class but because in all honesty, like I said, when I saw you, I was like, oh my God, this woman's hilarious. One of the funniest people I've seen, because you had that same energy that I like. Like so many New York comics are very kind of like, they're hilarious, but they're like, this is what we're going to do. I'm going to stand right here. I'm not going to move.
Yeah.
And it's about the words, which obviously full credit to them. They're much better writers than I am. But I was just like, come on, let's get it going.
Yeah. I tell Steve they're slow talkers.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, he's a slow talker.
And so how was it? Because you came up in that environment of, there are a lot of New York comics that are like that. So how was it for you? Were you just doing open mics and you just kind of fell into this like, well, this is who I am, so this is what I'm going to do? Because it takes comics so long to find their voice, but it seems like you've kind of expedited that entire process.
Well, I started doing the Laughing Buddha. I was there for like 2 years, only doing open mics there.
Yeah.
Maybe not 2 years. I would say like 6 months.
Okay.
But then I know I was like, well, let's hold on.
We can be a little hyperbolic.
Yeah. I was like, the class was I don't know. Anyway, but my first, like, while I was taking the class and like a few months after the class, I was only at Laughing Buddha. I was terrified of anywhere else. It was like my safe space. And then I started hosting those mics, and that's what changed everything, because hosting those mics, you literally go up in between every person and you have to riff.
Yeah.
And that showed me how to run a show, how to think off the top of my head, how to go first, which is really hard.
Very difficult, yeah.
I made a lot of mistakes, but what are you going to do? And, but yeah, hosting was, that's where I learned my energy and like quick thinking and the zingers, and, then I started hosting at clubs. That was my first hosting bar shows and then clubs.
Okay, so you went from the open mic to hosting the open mic to hosting bar shows to hosting at clubs.
Yes.
What was the first major club you got passed at in New York?
New York Comedy Club.
Okay.
Yeah, Amy Hawthorne, God bless her. She's where I got engaged.
Yes.
She worked with Steve, yeah. And actually, what's crazy is he proposed to me in the same club where I had my first show.
Okay,
I know, and he had no idea.
Oh, he didn't? I was
No.
going to say that sounds like something Steven would like just jot down in the back of his head and be like, I'll remember that.
It's funny because like the day we got engaged, I got a little high and to go to bed because I was all like hopped up,
Yeah.
And so I usually smoke like 2 puffs of a joint and then fall asleep. But I was like, sometimes I spiral, and I was like, oh no, I forgot I'm going to spiral about getting married. This is a huge life change. And then that's when I made the connection. I was like, oh, that was my first comedy show. And that's when I was like, oh, I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
And then it was also where I got it. I was like, oh, it's a sign. I'm fine.
Again, it's fate.
It's fate. It's fate. So I was like,
twice in your comedy career, you've been struck by fate.
yeah, it's like, oh, just you're doing the right thing then. If all these things fall in line,
Absolutely.
then you're where you're supposed to be. It's very horoscopy of me. I know.
Does it hold a special place in your heart because that was where you first got passed, or was it one of those things where you're just kind of like, it's just another club in New York? Or?
No. I love every single person who works at New York Comedy Club. They're, my heart and soul. They gave me my first shot. I was there 4 times a week at one point. Before the pandemic, I was there constantly. And so like Reg, Joe, all these people, Rachel, like they're all just like very much family. Yeah.
That's awesome, because the one thing that has been not discouraging, but kind of just different, is the fact that it is so business oriented, and it needs to be, because it's New York City. Like nobody comes here to like mess around. Like it's time to go. Like this is the hardest way it's ever going to be. And so I think about that when I think about like, cause I'll go to clubs cause I work like 4 blocks from the stand. So a lot of times I'll get off of work and I just walk over there and I'll just hang out. And I love the staff there. Everyone's so nice. But at the same time in my head, it's like, this time could probably be better served like doing other things to get past here, not just like hanging out. But at the same time, it's one of those things where it's like, oh, I consider these people like friends, almost like family. But then I'll run into other comics and they're like, no, if I don't have a spot, like I'm not going out. Like I'm not going out. And I'm like, oh yeah, it is like a business up here.
Yeah.
Because every scene I've been from, it's like, it's a fan, like the comics, everybody, Maddie Weiner we had on, and she was talking about the comedy community. Like it's vulnerable and you're by yourself on stage, but there's a whole community of people to like support you and help you. And up here, there is that for sure, but it's not nearly as much as in smaller scenes.
Yeah.
So was that something that you like had to deal with, or did you just make your friends and you're like, this is my crew?
Well, I found my friends pretty quickly because at Laughing Buddha, you're forced to. So you have your little Laughing Buddha family, right? But then that kind of falls apart. We can talk about that off mic. But I started doing, because it kind of became a hostile. I started going to other mics, and I was doing like 25, 30 mics a week.
Oh wow!
Which is the beautiful thing about New York City, but also the curse, because then pretty much all my outside friends go away, and I just dwittle down. But like I found my people just by doing these mics all the time. We would, and then we would put each other's names on lists and try and help each other out. Yeah. That's how I met Peter Ravello, Usama, Eagle, Fumi. Like we all kind of started together just because we were Ethan. Yeah. Like we were all just like forced together in a way, like Maddie Smith as well.
Okay. Yeah.
Stuff like that. We all just kind of, well, we're at the same mics, so, I'm going to sit with you and we will be friends.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've actually noticed that too. I don't know if you're like me, but I'm a way anxious person, like super anxious. And I'm the kind of person where I'll show up to them. I've been here for 11 months now, and I'll show up to mics, and if like I walk by and there's no one that I know, it takes like a lot for me to be like, all right, just bite the bullet and sit down and sign up. Because so often, like, you'll show up and people, who the fuck's this new person? Like, fuck them. And it's like, guys, I've been here, like I do at least 5 to 10 mics a week. Like, come on, I've been doing this for over 10 years. Like, just give me a shot. Yeah. But a lot of times I get in my own head and nobody gives a shit about me. Yeah. Like my girlfriend makes fun of me all the time. She's like, it's not, like, nobody cares about you. And I'm always like, no, they're gonna look at me and be like, fuck this guy.
I know.
So I'll pace outside chain smoking, and then I'll just go home. And I'm like, what the fuck is that?
I feel like everybody feels that way about the Pine Box Rock Shop mic.
Okay, I haven't done that one.
Oh, if you want to get nervous, this is, if you want the anxiety, it's a mountain to climb. I used to get so intimidated by it because I did mostly Manhattan mics and then outer Brooklyn mics. Okay. But never like the hipster mics.
Yeah, I've never, I've not.
And so I started, like the first time I'd go in, I'd be like, oh my God, you get 2 minutes and it's everybody knows everybody and everybody's very hip and beautiful, and doing all these what seem like inside jokes on stage. And you're like, what? Everybody knows each other? This is crazy.
They're all laughing and you're like, I don't get it.
Yeah. But luckily it's literally, I've always had the personality of like, well, go in and it will be different the next time you do it. It will be easier. You do it once, it'll be easier.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, and now if I go to an open mic, I'm like,
let's do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, and that's also the blessing of being usually the only woman at a mic. Yeah. It's like, well, you're already staring at me anyway. So, I better spice up this open mic. And I know you're going to listen to me because you're going to be like, boobs, like, it's very fun. So.
And now you're past an assortment of clubs. I would say all the major clubs in the city, and you tour constantly. So has that been, was that kind of like a realization, or was that just like, or like something like, because for me, I imagine what that's going to be like when that happens, because it's a win, not a if sort of a thing. And to me, I'm like, that's it. Like, that's the final level. Like, that's the final boss, is getting past at these clubs and then starting to tour and stuff. For you, as always being a fan of comedy and stuff, has it hit you, I guess, is what I'm trying to ask, of like, oh, this is it. Like, I'm in, like, I'm doing it.
Yes and no. Because before the pandemic, I was hosting everywhere. And I always told myself, if I ever got to the point where I'm living off of my comedy money, then I've made it. Yeah. That's all I need. I just want to make my bills doing comedy. And right before the pandemic, I was able to do that.
That's awesome.
And then it all went away. Yep. And then I went back to my day job. I was working in construction and art handling, and I literally at one point I was
Jordan's got all those bits about doing construction.
Oh yeah. I got her a job, motherfucker.
Did you really?
Yes. Oh my God, I love her so much. She's one of my closest.
I know. She's another one. When I saw her, I was like, this is so funny.
Yes, she's a wild child. But actually, her and I got passed at the cellar on the same exact night.
Really?
There's a picture of us just like close to tears, just hugging each other, like, oh my God,
God.
But so I remember at one point I was doing construction and I was on all fours scraping paint off of a concrete floor, and I looked up at my boss and I said, I was on TV. And then I get downstairs and I just keep scrubbing and scrubbing, and it's like, but obviously by no means does being on TV mean you've made it.
No,
especially late night, but it's still, I thought it was funny. And he was just like, you sure have. You missed a spot. I'm like, yeah, right.
Do you talk about that? That's hilarious.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I will if I ever become known.
I was on TV once.
But then I was able, 6 months after getting past at the Cellar, I was able to quit my day job again.
Awesome.
And so now it's just comedy, which is, it's tricky. I do have to be a little more conscious with my money, but
absolutely,
it's totally worth it. And then every time I see Dave Attell perform, or he says, "Hey, Kate, I like that new joke," or something like that, and I'm like, "Oh my god,
yeah, that's
Dave Attell."
Because it's one of those things where so many people have heroes that they'll never see or never meet, like whether it's athletes or actors or musicians, and that's just someone you look up to from afar.
Yeah.
But in our line of work, what we do, we run into those people all the time.
They're going to come to Buffalo.
Yeah.
But
it's like, it's crazy because it's like, especially living in New York, like I told the story before, but like meeting Bill Burr, like Bill Burr is one of my favorites because I'm like, I have that same kind of storyteller, like angry style. Like I'm by no means anywhere near that stratosphere, but that's someone I look up to is what I'm trying to say. And then one night, my buddy was at the stand and he knows Bill and he texts me. He's like, "Hey, I'm hanging out with Bill. If you want to come by, I'll introduce you." And I was at work and I was like, "Oh,
yeah."
And I was like, "I'll be right there."
Yeah.
But I had to work. So by the time I got there, my buddy had left. So then I'm just standing there like 6 feet away from Bill while he's talking to Verzi at the bar. And I'm like, he's right there.
Yeah.
But like a lot of times people, and then I laughed at something they said because I was eavesdropping and he turns and he goes, "Are you going to get in the conversation or just stand there like a fucking creep?" And I was like, "Oh my God, we're best friends now. Are we best friends? I think we're best friends." So then we were talking and stuff, but it kind of hit me. It's like, oh, this doesn't happen for almost everybody else in the world. You have the people you look up to and you'll just never meet them. You'll never get to hang out with them. So for us, and especially for you, to Skanks for the Memories is such a milestone in your life. And then to just have Dave Attell be like, "Hey, Kate."
Yeah.
That's got to be insane.
It's insane. Because I'm a dirty comic, obviously. And so I get put on
You're on this show, obviously.
Yeah, I get put on the late shows at the Cellar all the time, and he closes those out.
Yep.
And so he'll talk to the host or someone in the room.
I see it all the time. He'll be like, "Hey, come up here. Will, come up here."
Yeah. And he one time brought me up there, and I almost shit my pants.
Yeah, that's
like literally. I was like, and then I remember leaving that night being like, "Oh my God, I'm doing the thing." Because I used to, before I had the guts to even try comedy, I would sit in the back of the Cellar and go to the Wednesday shows because that was his dirty show.
Yeah.
And so it was 11:30 at night. It started, and he would headline it, and I would sit in the back and I'd watch him, and I'd be like, "Oh my God,
This is so crazy."
One day maybe I'll go to an open mic, and then
now you're on stage with him.
On stage with him, yeah. It's crazy.
It blows my mind. I want to talk about kind of because you do have the podcast Good Time Gal.
I sure do.
I want to talk about some of your Good Time Gal stories, as it were, some of the ex-drinking buddy stories. So. When did you start, like, were you, how do I want to phrase this? So in high school or even before that, were you always a real popular kid or did you, because you said you were loud and kind of like wanted attention the same kind of way I did. But I always received the opposite end of that. Like I was bullied incessantly all through middle school. I didn't hit my growth spurt till I was like almost a senior in high school. So I didn't really like get into the party life scene, like actually having friends to hang out with until I was in college. So for you, when did you start like hanging out and going to parties and stuff like that?
Well, I was really into soccer, and my grades were fine, but they weren't great.
This is in high school?
In high school. I always say that, but then I realized, I look back, I had a 3.7 GPA, and I was taking like AP classes, and I was like, "Bitch, you were fine."
Yeah.
Okay, why were, I'm like, they weren't that great. That's
pretty fantastic.
You're good. Yeah. Okay. I just didn't like it.
Yeah.
Anyway, but my sister was also valedictorian, and I came in
my
afterwards,
brother
and I
was
was
a PhD
like,
from Cornell.
Yeah. So I was just like, well, I'm never going to be that.
Yeah. I'm always like, I was an IB too. They're like, yeah, but he graduated with a 5.0. You graduated with like a 2.9.
Yeah. And you're like,
whatever, guys.
Yeah.
I played Division I football, so suck it.
Yeah. I was into soccer, so I didn't party at all. I was afraid that if I ever drank, I would be, taken off whatever list that I imaginary
Your
list.
permanent record. Remember that? That was a thing when we were
Absolutely.
younger.
I was like, they're going to find out. They're going to pee test me and they'll know I had half a Budweiser 6 years ago. So I just never drank. I never drank in high school. I remember going to a party once and being not drinking and just being there being like, what? I don't know what I'm doing.
So did you have like a lot of friends that partied, or were you just like on the team and those were your friends and that's kind of the circles you hung out in?
I had a few friends, they were all very academic oriented.
Okay.
Goody two shoes. We were the goody two shoes, but we were friendly with everybody.
Yeah.
We weren't the popular kids, but we knew them and we got along with them and stuff. I don't think I was on any enemy list. I could have been because in elementary school I was big, so I got made fun of for being tall.
Yeah.
And then I retaliated by being meaner. And then I got to middle school and I was like, I want to be pretty and liked. And so then that changed.
Yeah.
I stopped being such a dick. But yeah, elementary school, from what I remember, I was a dick. And my friends sometimes are like, no, you were fine.
Just like you had bad grades.
Asshole.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I think of myself as a monster. And they're like, you were fine. Anyway. But yeah, and then I got to college.
Where did you go to college?
UC San Diego.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's the smart kids again. It's the smart kids, but it's in San Diego, so it's smart, but then we have a nice time.
Yeah.
It's not San Diego State, which is the party school.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah, I've heard of that one.
We're the responsible partiers,
okay.
I would say.
So did you go for soccer?
I did. I got
full ride?
Soccer. No. Oh. I got soccer listed, which just means I think that college scandal of how kids were getting into college.
Yeah,
they would get put on like, oh, they're going to try out for the tennis team, and so the coach would say, I want this person and this person in. That's actually how I got into college.
Hell yeah, it is.
Except I was actually good at soccer.
Yeah.
So
it was like, that's what happened with me. I say partial scholarship, but it's just a preferred walk-on.
Preferred walk-on, yes.
Where
absolutely.
they're like, you don't have to try out. We want you on the team. We just don't have the scholarships to give you. Or in my case, it was like, yeah, you're not good enough. Like, you've never played the position. Because I played offensive line all through high school. And then I went to be a fullback because I wasn't big enough to play offensive line. They're like, you've never played fullback. So we're not going to just give you a scholarship. So same thing where they paid for my meal plan and my books. And they were just like, you're on the team, but you're not like a full ride, kind of a. So same thing.
They were D2, even though they were a really big public school. The women's team was the only D2. Everyone else was D1. It's something weird. Anyway, but they didn't have scholarships. But the average GPA was like a 4.2.
Yeah.
And I had a 3.7. And so I got soccer listed. And I was like, thank God. But then, so I think that's why I think I was like such a bad student. It's like, well, everybody else I went to college had a 4.1 and 4.2. And I was like, I had a 3.7.
It was literally in the same house as me.
Yeah. Yeah. I had fine SATs, like above average. I think I had a 1,200. And I was like, why was I so upset?
Yeah.
You did fine.
Okay SATs. And it's like, oh, my brother missed one question.
I know, right? It's so upsetting.
It's like a 1592.
Oh my God, that's
literally
too
missed
high.
like one question.
Jesus, it haunts him. We're like, you're fine.
It really does.
It haunts him. He's like, I know what a radius is.
But it's funny you say that because I was an IB, which is just like AP on steroids kind of thing. But it's like a whole program. It's an international program. But I only was in it because my brother was in it. Mm-hmm. And you have to like take IQ tests and do all sorts of stuff to get into the program for high school.
Jesus.
But then I got into it and it was one of those things where I was just always behind everyone. Because these were like Mensa level, like dumb smart kind of people. You know what I mean? Like too smart. So I always felt behind. And then I remember like getting into college and I hated busy work. Mm-hmm. Like I'm not like, do not tell me to read something and write 2 paragraphs. Like fuck off. But then I got to college and it's like, oh no, like you show up because I was a football player. I was able to take like my political science classes as a freshman and a sophomore, which I loved. And because I enjoyed it, they were like, yeah, you show up when you show up. Like just take the test and write the dissertation at the end and that's it. And I ended up doing so much better in college for that reason. Of course, until I started doing cocaine and drinking every day.
I mean, it happened.
But so for you, when you get into college and you're playing soccer, were you still on that? Did you still have that chip on your shoulder? Like, fuck, like this sucks? Or
no.
All right.
I was finally out of the house. My parents were pretty strict.
Okay.
And But I was also not interested in drinking or doing drugs in high school. But then I got to college, and there we had an initiation party.
Yeah, you did.
So so that was my first.
What
taste
was the initiation
of alcohol.
for soccer?
For soccer.
Okay.
Yeah, and it was before school started.
And soccer players can drink.
Oh my god,
Soccer players, they've got that fast metabolism.
It was wild. Like it was a huge party. They dress us up. We're all wearing diapers. They dressed me up as Bam Bam because I had this huge bun on my head. That's how I could only carry my hair, and so they called me Bam Bam. So I had these like leopard print bikini with fake tits and
Bam, bam,
Bam Bam. Yeah, and then we're all drinking beer out of a straw in a bowl, and
everyone's in the same bowl.
everyone's in the same bowl. Disgusting.
Dogs.
And then Malibu vodka or Malibu rum.
Yeah,
we were just
coconut
taking
rum.
shots of Malibu rum.
There you go.
And I remember being like, "This is
the first time you've ever tasted alcohol.
correct." Yeah, it was horrific.
So what happens?
So I get pretty drunk, but I'm still like with it. I'm together. It's fine. We get home and I make everybody hot pockets. Like I was very sweet. Yes. And then, but then I was like, I was literally like, this is fun. Drinking is fun.
Yeah.
And then that started the whole thing.
So what?
The whole drinking saga.
Yeah. So what happened? So you enjoy? Because the first time I ever got hammered, my anxiety and depression like went away, and I go, "What is this magical elixir? Like I don't feel bad about anything.
Yeah.
Like, this is fantastic."
Yeah, I became more outgoing.
Yeah.
Because I was on this soccer team and I was a red shirt. I tore my groin, and so they put me on medical red search. Yeah, it was a whole thing. And so I felt kind of out of place because I wasn't really on the team, but I was on the team.
Yeah.
But
I
in
totally
your,
understand.
in your brain, you're just like, I'm a level below, but it's like, no, you're fine. You're injured. You're good. Okay. Anyway. And so
Well, it's different because you're not out practicing with everybody and stuff. So you, like you said, you're on the team, but you don't feel a part of.
Yeah. I mean, we even practiced together. We were all practicing. The only thing we didn't do was go on road trips.
Oh, I thought because you were hurt, you were still you would just be in the trainer's room.
I would be in the trainer's room. I would help warm up the goalkeeper.
Okay.
And stuff like that. So I was still very much a part. And then I got better after a month and a half or something. And then I was doing full training.
Okay. So then you were back.
Yeah. And then I was back. And, yeah, but but then I got to the dorms, and the dorms is just like, let's all get shit faced all the time.
Living on campus,
drinking. The thing is, this is a fun story. San Diego, you're so close to Tijuana. And there was a bus.
That's in Mexico.
Mexico, excuse me.
Tijuana.
Yes, Tijuana. And there's a bus that goes from each college campus, picks you up and drops you off at the border.
This is not I'm assuming this is not a university sanctioned bus.
No.
This is a guy named Billy Bob and his buddies that
Pretty
are like,
much.
you know what we should do? We should pick up damn college students and drop them off at the border.
Seriously. And you had to like reserve tickets, but
Yeah,
they still like overbooked it. So people were sitting on people's laps
What kind of bus was it?
Oh, it was like
this detail is just gonna totally paint the picture.
It had cloth seats. It was like a Peter Pan bus.
Okay.
Yeah.
But was it like it wasn't an old school like school bus?
No.
Okay.
It was like a Peter Pan.
That would have been hilarious.
Yeah. Oh my God. Then it's like, wow, are we going on to that human trafficking bus? Which is wild to me because it was always like women wearing almost nothing.
Yeah,
going
absolutely.
to these clubs in Tijuana, and we're just getting on a bus and going to the border.
Doesn't it blow your mind how trusting you were and I was when you think back on like some of the stuff that we did?
100%.
Like I remember walking home one day from the strip club on I-95. I was walking because I was like, I can't drive. Like I'm fucking hammered.
Good for you.
So I was walking. And I left my phone there. I was out. Shout out to Dirty Dan. Is a kind of a Jackson. He was in comedy and then he was out and back and forth, kind of like what I did. But I went to celebrate his birthday, and I remember walking home, and I'm like 25.
Yeah.
And some guy just pulled over on I-95. He's like, "Hey, you need a ride, man?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." And I just get in the car, and I'm like blackout drunk. Like I remember getting in the car, and then I felt like I was going to throw up. So I had him like a mile away, like let me out, and I threw up, and he drove off. And then the cops eventually picked me up, and they're like, "You can't walk on, this is an interstate. Like,
Yeah.
you can't walk on this." I was like, "I don't know how else to get home."
Yeah.
They're like, "Where's your phone?" I was like, "I don't know." But it's like I just got in this guy's car. So you
We get into this van.
just get into a van.
Wearing a halter top and not much else.
And they drop you off on the U.S. side of the border because
Yeah.
God knows how much paperwork to get across.
Yeah.
And then everyone just walks across.
You just walk across. You have your ID. You just walk across, and then they check you on the way back in. And so I went.
Yeah, because they don't care about you going to Mexico.
No. Americans can go wherever they want. Fucking entitlement. But anyway.
I'm not allowed in Canada.
Oh, are you a sex offender?
No, DUI.
Yeah.
It's like a huge thing.
Yeah.
I talked to Josh about it because Josh Adam Myers got Montreal when he was still dealing with one of his DUIs. And
Yeah.
they were like, we got to figure this out.
Yeah.
This is just for laughs. Like, you have to go.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I can go anywhere but Canada.
I know, right? Maybe they'll do it in Austin. There you go.
That's true. There we go.
There you go. It's not. See, I'm here for you.
Fate.
Okay.
It's fate. So you guys walk across the border. Nobody cares. They're
Nobody
just like, come
cares.
on in.
Come on in. We go to Club Safari, and I mean, meow. It's a disgusting. I have a joke about it that I say it looks like the inside of a roofie. It's two levels with go-go dancers, but the girls are the go-go dancers. There's test tube shots. There's leopard print, black light everywhere. The back of the place is just volleyball courts. It's so weird, but in sand. So you're just like walking. You're like, what am I stepping? Oh, that's a prophylactic. Okay. And so you're just like, it was disgusting.
And is this, what year is this, if you don't mind me asking?
I was 18.
God.
Yeah. I don't remember what year that is, but
A few years ago.
a few years, just a couple. And
2 years ago.
yeah. Anyway, I mean, that's what it looks like. So actually, someone posted a picture of me in college, and I was like, who is that person? Anyway, I don't know who she is, but she's
I've lost
busy.
100 pounds over the course of like the last decade. Because after I stopped playing football, I was just drinking every day and going to Taco Bell at 2 a.m. and I blew up to like 3:15. And I'll look at pictures from that and I'm like, that's insanity. Like my face is like so round. And I'm always just like, hey guys, that's me. And people are like, no, it's not.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, it is.
I look at myself and I was like, you're so small.
Yeah.
You were tiny.
Well, because you played soccer. So
I played
it's just
soccer.
running all the time.
Yeah, and I was just like this tiny little, like just so small, and I was like ripped, and I was just like, I'm so fat, and it's like, what? I think it was like a size 4, and I was just
Oh
like,
my God, but my friends are 0.
exactly.
Yeah, that's
and it's
what
just
happens.
like, no, bitch, you look great.
Yeah, I remember thinking the same exact thing.
Yeah.
Like when I was in the best shape of my life playing ball, and I was like, God, I don't have abs, and I'll never have abs.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I have very good core strength, but it's just the way my body's built. And I used to be fat when I was a kid, and then I was fat again. So like, it's like, no, you're never gonna have washboard abs. But in my head, doesn't matter how good of a shape I'm in, and I'm like, you fat piece of shit.
Yeah,
it's
I
just
know.
that body dysmorphia that comes with being an athlete.
Yeah, I think now I'm a size 8 or 10. I fluctuate. And I'm like, that's great.
Yeah,
That's great.
Beautiful.
You're
Perfect.
fine. Maybe
Yeah.
one day you'll get to 6 and then you'll be like, who is she? You know? But we're not trying to get to a 4 or 2. That's just not in the realm. That's insane. That's not a human person. It's not a human female.
Those are
who's
people
in her
who are
30s.
genetically just built that way.
Yeah.
Like
And
there are some people who
God
are
love 'em.
petite. Yeah.
God love
It's
them.
like, no,
it ain't
man.
me.
I say it all the time. I like to be in a big crowded area and look around and be like, yeah, I'm the biggest motherfucker here. Like, I like doing that. That's fun.
Yeah. I mean, women don't, but that's okay.
But
Women are like, who's the biggest motherfucker here? And I'm going to stay away from him.
So you go to Tijuana.
Tijuana. We go
And
to Tijuana.
You're just 18 years old, just partying.
Getting hammered, very, very drunk.
Kid Cudi on the boombox.
I mean, I have no idea, but she was dancing. and then it's time to go home.
Kid Cudi's a male rapper.
Oh, yes. But at the time, I don't know if that was... Oh, I meant what was playing. I didn't know what was playing. I know who Kid Cudi is. Jesus Christ. Who is this young Kid Cudi? Is he okay? Is he cutting in line? Okay. He's a dirty little line cutter. We come back. Now, this is where it gets interesting.
Yeah, so what happens? You got to come back.
So in order to come back, you have to show your ID, and then they look at it to make sure it's not fake, and they ask, what is your country of origin? And if you say the United States of America, oh boy, you just go right through.
You're back.
It's great. You're
I'm
back,
back, baby.
You're back. And So I do this. I keep all my money and my stuff in my shoe because I was like, that way no one can steal it.
It's called a street wallet.
Yeah, pretty much. I was, crafty. Anyway, so I give her this smelly ID from my shoe and I give it to her.
Dancing.
Yes, all night. So I give it to her and she goes, okay, what's your country of origin? And I go, your mom.
No, you didn't.
I said, your mom.
Are you hammered?
Hammered. Your mom. Yeah. And she just, want to try again? And I was like, America or whatever. And she's like, okay. And then she...
Oh my God. So she gave you a second chance.
Well, and then I go across the border and the cop is waiting there. And he arrests me and he goes, drunk in public.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So I get handcuffed, the whole thing, taken into a trailer.
Did she call or they were just
waiting?
waiting?
I'm sure she did it's this one, because there were just a bunch of cops waiting at the border.
Who's mom now?
Yeah. Yeah. Now I got a new daddy. Oh God. It was so bad. And they put me in the trailer. I'm handcuffed. She asked me what my social security number is. And I don't know. I didn't know you were supposed to know that stuff.
Oh yeah. Especially back then. Because when you're younger, you don't.
No, I didn't even know.
It wasn't until college when you actually needed it to fill out like FAFSA forms and stuff, like the student aid. That's the only time where I was like, oh, maybe I should know this number. Yeah. Because they asked for it on every document. But before that, it's like, fuck, I don't fucking know.
Yeah. I had no clue. And the woman is like, I remember sitting there in fluorescent lighting and she's like, I can't believe you don't know your social. And I was like, I don't know. But I had put my ID back into my shoe before I got arrested. So they had no way to find out who I was.
Oh, yeah. Because you're on the other side of the border.
On the other side of the border. And so... So they don't know who I am, so they can't formally charge me. So they have to take me to the drunk tank. Yeah. And so I get put in the back of a van with a bunch of other women. We get dropped off in downtown San Diego. And it's literally the women are in this small corner with two guards standing right there. And then the rest is an auditorium filled with drunk dudes.
Oh, so they don't have a separate cell for the women.
No. And so we're there and we're like chatting with each other. Like, oh my God, show me your tattoos. What do you do? Blah, 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 blah. Like we're just talking and having a nice time. They have mattresses on the ground. We're treating it like a slumber party.
Oh my God.
I swear to God, all these drunk guys were like, what the fuck is going on over there? And they're like, don't look at them. And I remember this one woman, she had 2 gun tattoos just right over her hip bones.
Yeah, I knew exactly. When you said 2 gun tattoos, I knew exactly where they were going to be.
Right there. And her and I got along real well. We were chatting. Oh my God, blah, blah, blah. And then we're slowly coming down. We're no longer getting drunk. And then
now the hangover's starting to kick in.
It's 7 a.m. and I have to go back to school. And I
was this on the weekend or was this?
It was on the weekend. Okay. Yeah, it was on a Saturday night. No, I have to get home, and I have to like figure out public transit for the first time, but I finally get out. I have no money to give them. Apparently, there's a fee, but I don't because everything's. I was like, I don't know, and so I never paid the fee. They have no idea who I am. They just let me go. And so
that's awesome.
I know. And then my friends were apparently trying to pick me up.
Just circling the block.
Yeah. But this was, I didn't bring my cell phone at the time because I was like, oh, I'm just.
We're all together.
Someone's going to steal it. Yeah. Someone's going to, or maybe it died. I don't know. Something like that. But I think I remember not bringing my cell phone because I was like, you can't use it in Mexico. Something like that. Anyway, so I didn't have my cell phone, so I didn't know they were coming to get me. So I take 2 trolleys and a bus to get home. I'm dressed like a trollop. I'm still dressed in like my hoochie coochie, like I want attention outfit. It's 7 a.m. I look like trash. I finally get home. It's like 9 o'clock in the morning, and I walk into my dorm, and it's Parents' Day, and so they're giving tours of our dorm to everybody. And like families with children.
Were your parents there?
No, my parents were not. But the kids coming in and their parents were all walking and touring. And I literally look like trash. I look like a hooker.
You look like you just got vomited out of Tijuana.
Exactly. And I come walking in and I'm like, hello. And then I crawl up into my bunk and I swear to God, every half hour it opened again. And this is the room. And this is what, and everybody peeks in. I'm just like, God. And then
let me die in peace.
Yeah, I was so embarrassed. The next day I was like humiliated. And then a week later I go to get coffee at our like school coffee shop and the barista is the girl with the gun tattoos.
No.
And we look at each other, we both recognize each other and we go, have a good day. And we never talked again.
You never spoke again?
No.
Oh my God, I want to know who that person is.
I know. Part of me now is kicking myself because I was like, I should have become, that was our sign. To
Eventually, I mean,
hang out.
It's the internet. Eventually, she's going to hear something.
Yeah.
Whether it's from your podcast or the different podcasts you do.
Lady with the revolver tattoos, you call me.
Yeah.
Send me a sweet DM. If you were in Muir College in year 2000, I don't know. But anyway, if you were at Muir College with how many of them are there?
There can't be.
There can't be. And you worked at Muir Woods, the coffee shop, and you got into the drunk tank. Call old Caitlin Peluffo. She wants to rekindle this flame, baby.
Well, I have a whole bit about it on stage, but I'm still like acquaintances, Facebook friends with the person that I had that experience with. Because I've been arrested 8 times, so it's a whole thing. Like I talk about a lot of that on stage, and I have a whole bit about. There's always going to be someone that's in the cell with you that wants to talk. Yeah. And I go into the whole story, but that's a real person. Yeah. Like I'm still friends with them to this day. Yeah. Because people will get mad at me because his name is Tyrone and I do like the voice and everything. And then especially in New York, people are like, you're perpetuating stereotypes. Like, why can't it be Bob? And I go, because his name is Tyrone. He's my friend. Like, what are you talking about? Yeah. But I've actually called him on, like, did the Facebook call thing from stage when a lady was like heckling me that I was being racist. I was like, oh, hold on a second. And I called him and I was like, hey man, can you tell the story about how we met? And he told the story and I was like, go fuck yourself. Yeah. But those relationships are very important. Drunk tank, cell relationships are very important.
I mean, yeah, it's also like a little trauma bonding.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because like in high or in college, me and there's like a group of 5 people. We just got drunk and hammered and in trouble all the time. And then in
how many times have you been arrested?
I've only been arrested once.
That one time?
Knock on wood. Almost got arrested twice, but not for drinking, but for having a suspended license, for not paying a speeding ticket. It's a whole thing.
For not paying after getting out of jail. That's probably what it was from.
Probably.
San Diego called.
You don't have my ID. Yeah, I wonder if I could get into JFL because I wonder if something's out on mine. Anyway.
Have you ever looked?
I've been to... When I was 27, I went to Vancouver.
Yeah, okay.
And I got in fine. So I would imagine.
Well, it's something...
You can look?
Yeah, oh yeah. Yeah.
Oh, really? Oh, I would love to check.
We'll talk about it off mic, but yeah. There's certain, actually, I didn't realize this till I moved to New York, but there's certain backgrounds that the brokers will run on you and like the real estate people will run on you. And they'll actually, legally by New York law, they have to send you the results. So... Let me tell you, it was fun being reminded of all my shenanigans. Yeah. I get this thing back and it's like arrest. I'm like, I know. Like you guys, like I get it, man. This was 10 years ago. Relax.
Yeah. I'm a good Christian boy now.
So how often were you guys doing the Tijuana thing?
I did that twice. When I got arrested, that was the last time I did it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, so you just had this core group of friends and you guys just continued to party?
Yeah, we partied, but we weren't like going out to sororities and stuff like that.
Yeah, what was it like to, because from my perspective, I know how, like, it's all the athletes would normally hang out with each other. Yeah. Be it swimmers or soccer players or football players. Like, we all kind of trauma bonded over the fucking hardships of playing sports in South Florida in the summertime. You know, it was 90,000 degrees outside. So we all just kind of hung out with each other.
That's what, when I was on the varsity team, that's what they called it, the varsity team. The first year I would try and hang out with all them, but my close friends were not there, you know? So I would try and like, hey, you know, and try and fit in, but it just didn't fit.
So your close friends weren't soccer players?
No, my close friends, we met in the dorms.
Okay.
And
that always happens.
Yeah. And then I joined the club team. So I was a redshirt for 1 year, and then I drank and just got out of shape. You know?
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
So,
and so I ended up getting
tell that story. So you ended up getting cut.
I ended up getting cut.
So you went from a soccer listed player to now you're getting cut.
Now I'm getting cut. I was the last one cut. I know. It was devastating, but at the same time, when I like got home, I was like, oh, thank God. Yeah. Because it just wasn't, you have to really love sports or that particular sport to put in the work that you need.
It's a full-time job.
And I just did not love it. Yeah. I didn't love it at all. And I was like, oh, thank God I can do something else. And that's what made me try and find another hobby, and it was photography. And then
I thought you were going to say drinking.
Yeah, no, well, it could have been. But yeah, I went into photography, thank God, and then I went to grad school, and
So did you? So you said you got cut, and you were kind of almost relieved because
hugely relieved.
Yeah, and so then did you? Did you come off the rails, or were you still? Because I was actually curious how this played out, because you talked about like drinking and stuff in college, and I was like, well, how did that coincide with you playing soccer? But you weren't. You were playing on the club team now.
Yeah.
2 questions. Were you dominating the club team? Were you just like, these fucking, they have no idea?
Well, yeah, I was so competitive still.
Yeah.
I still had that competitive streak. I had something to prove, and yeah, I was pretty good. I would play a lot, but I was also aggressive. Like I was
Just fly
trying to hit
tackling the
people.
shit. Yeah.
I mean,
You should have gotten into rugby. Did you guys have a club rugby team?
we did have a club rugby team, but I never did it. I was just like, I play soccer.
Yeah.
I was like, I play soccer. That's what I do. And I was good. But yeah, I was really kind of a bitch. Like I was too aggressive. Like my goal was always to make someone cry.
Fuck yeah.
It's not a fuck yeah situation. It's horrible. I think back at it now. It's not a fuck yeah situation.
No, it's absolutely not. You're 100. That's sorry.
It's just like someone with something to prove.
I didn't go to the gym yet today, so sometimes that like
I know, but I mean, now that's I played intramural in New York, like just like for fun.
Yeah.
Co-ed. And I would.
Is it ever, when we're this competitive, is it ever really for fun?
That's the thing. I had to stop.
Yeah.
I had to stop because
it's not fun.
It's not fun. Other people would get really competitive with me, and I've been punched like 3 times playing intramurals.
Wait, what do you mean? Like on purpose, or
Yeah.
Just
Someone would
running
attack
around
me from the back. Yeah, because I would just hit him and hit him and hit him and hit him, and I was snarky. I was such a little bitch.
So was this like within the last? This has to have been within the last few years.
Yeah. I stopped playing because I hurt my knee, and
Okay.
I was like, "Oh, I don't have health insurance. What are we doing?" So I had to stop. But and now I haven't gone back because it's like, unless I can just come at this with joy
Yeah.
and just like pure happiness, and not the competitive. I'm gonna break you. Then
Well, Mike
I won't
Tyson
do
talked
it.
about it. He did an interview, and they were asking him why he wasn't training, and he goes, "Because once I start, like I can't turn it off. Like it comes out, and it's 100% true. Doesn't matter, like you said, like whether you're on a club team or you play D1, D2, D3, NAIA. Like it doesn't matter. Like if you have that much passion for something to where you're going to do it to where you kind of don't have to. And like in high school, everyone kind of has a thing.
Yeah.
But if you do it outside of that, that means you want to do something competitive.
Yeah.
And it can get real bad real fast because you're just like, no, fuck, I'm going to kill everybody.
Yeah.
Like, fuck all of you.
It's wild. Yeah. It was, it's not my favorite part of myself.
Yeah.
But it is.
But it's also something that drives us. I can only speak from my experience, but the competitive nature in me is the reason why when I bomb, I'm like, you're going to go home and you're going to fucking fix it. Yeah. Like it's your job to fix it.
That's why I think athletes thrive when it comes to stand up. Just because it's repetitive and repetitive and repetitive.
And it's something we can get better at.
Yeah.
Like there's so much stuff in life where it's like, no, that's just how it is. And that's how it is. And you're like, well, I can't, because a lot of us are control freaks. I know I am, where it's like, no, I have the power to change this and make it better and then Hannah Berner too. She played tennis. Mm-hmm. Like it's weird. We were joking at the stand one night and she goes, yeah, a lot of comics are either addicts, recovering addicts, or athletes. Yeah. Because we all have that same, like, just keep going.
Just keep going, head down and just focus and then that work ethic.
Oh, yeah,
you have to have trauma and then you have to rebuild.
I talk to people at work because I work at night. And the only reason I do, Dan Lamort and I have had this conversation a million times, but he's like, why don't you get a day job? It's like, because I work at a swanky steakhouse and I can make my rent in 3 days.
Yes.
Like, it's like, why would I give that
Absolutely.
up? Like, to make $70-$80 a morning at like a brunch, like, fuck that. So, but it's funny because he's always like, I'll talk to people I work with and they're like, yeah, I sleep until about 2. Then I get up and I maybe go for a walk and then I come into work and I work until midnight and then I go home and go back. Like I stay up till 4 drinking and then I'm like, I did 2 podcasts and 3 open mics before work today. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah. I mean, when I used to work in restaurants, I was a bartender.
Yeah.
Oh, baby.
In New York?
In New York.
Okay.
For 8 years.
Were you really?
Yeah. I worked at the General Green, at Melt, and Mayfield.
I didn't know that about you.
Only Mayfield is still in functioning, and they're great people. Mayfield.
Was that was obviously before you got into construction?
I was doing it all. I had like
both?
3 jobs. I was renting my apartment out on Airbnb, working art handling. Because art handling, unless you work for a gallery or a museum, it's every time there's a new install. So it's only like twice a month.
Yeah.
and then
bartending
and then bartending and serving,
doing comedy,
and then doing comedy. Yeah,
God.
It was crazy. I had and I was also working for 3 different galleries too, so it was nuts.
That's insane.
And then I was still doing 25 mics because I would just I have. I have 4 nights off this week.
Yeah.
So those 4 nights, I'm going to do 5 or 6 mics each time.
Which you can do in New York.
Yeah. And I also did it. And then after I did Colbert, this was my strategy. Instead of doing it by amount of times I got up, I did how much time I was getting.
Yeah.
So my goal was to do an hour a week.
Okay.
And so I would figure out what mics I did to get to an hour of stage time a week.
Yeah.
And then I moved it up to an hour and a half when I started doing longer sets, and now I just don't pay attention because I get up enough. Yeah. Now I should probably do it by joke. But anyway, it doesn't matter how many times I say a joke so that it gets stronger. Or anyway, there's a lot of math that I could be doing, and I'm not going to do that. But yeah, that's what I did. I did it by time.
Okay. So when you got into bartending, were you still living that? So you come to New York for grad school, and then you finish grad school, you start bartending, you're doing all this stuff. Were you living that lifestyle? Because I know I've been doing it since I've been serving since I was 18, so I'm very aware of that life of after work,
getting hammered, bartending, getting hammered while bartending.
Yeah, that was the question I was dancing around. Oh
my God, yeah. We would drink shots of Old Overholt with our regulars.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we would just drink them.
Did you ever get in trouble for that?
Once.
Okay.
Only because I got too drunk that I couldn't do the cash register. It was my second time ever bartending at Mayfield. And my manager at the time, Keith, was like, you have to go home. And I was like, I can't do it.
Yep.
And but luckily we were friends, and he was like, just go home and I won't fire you. And I was like, okay. And then I came back and I apologized, and he was like, yeah, you're an idiot. Don't get that drunk. And
that's how, because I had been drinking from 18 until 30. Mm-hmm. So, and I've been a server that whole time. So there were countless times where I'd come in drunk, but I was really good. I'm really good at my, I take everything I do, whether it's comedy or work or working out. Like I take everything super seriously. So I was really good at it. So they wouldn't fire me.
Yeah.
They'd just be like, come, I've been sent home 2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
Because I'd forget I'd keep forgetting my section.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, fuck, what tables are mine again?
Yeah.
Or I'd take a table's order and then walk away and forget to put it in, and they're like, go home.
Yeah.
Sleep it off. But there are a lot of times you come in and just that right amount of buzz, and that's perfect for that work environment, because you're like, hey, everybody.
Yeah.
Now it's a party.
Yeah. I mean, it was wild when I think back, because we would work our shift and I would, just drink a little bit throughout. And then as soon as the customers were gone, it was a party.
Yeah.
It was because we were all friends. We all loved each other, and we just got hammered. Just us and the line. I dated 4 line cooks.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it was just, they're so fun. And then we would all go to the neighborhood bar afterwards until 4 a.m.
Yep.
And we would and the owners would sit inside and smoke cigarettes and drink with us.
Yeah. Hang out with you.
Yeah. And it wasn't like we were keeping it from them or.
Yeah. Did you ever get into any sort of other than the being sent home, did you ever get into any kind of real trouble, or was it just a good time?
It was always just a good time.
Yeah.
I'm very good at policing myself.
Are you? Okay.
Yeah. I don't really do hard drugs. I think I tried coke maybe 3 times, but I always had the stigma in my head.
And I can't. I used to do a lot of it, and now I'm so grateful I don't do it, because it's just me grinding my teeth, pacing back, and it's why am I doing this to myself?
I would only do it so that I could drink more.
Yeah.
And then
that was the whole reason.
And then at 7 a.m, we did a bunch of coke, and I had painted my whole room. I was like, we should paint my room. And we did. We painted my room, and I was like, what am I doing? And that was the last time I ever, because the lines are all squiggly.
Yeah.
It's not great.
We should start a business.
Yeah, I know. And I was like, well, now my room is green. I was just going to do one wall, but then I was like, we have enough paint to do all of it. And so we did. And boy, it was, what a choice. It was actually it doesn't matter. It wasn't great.
Are you still friends with a lot of those people from the bars and stuff? They come out to shows and hang out and stuff?
Yeah, especially the owners.
Yeah.
They're lovely people, Jacques and Lev.
Shouts out.
Yeah, shouts out. Really good food too. Very friendly. Whenever I go back there, it's always going home a little bit. It's in Crown Heights.
Okay.
I think there was a whole changeover, so I probably don't know any of the servers or bartenders anymore. But
that's how it happens. But.
Yeah, but they come to shows. They'll surprise me and just be like, "Hey, I was in the back. Great job." Yeah, Lev came to Stand Up New York, and then Jacques came to a cellar show, and then we got drinks afterwards.
Oh, that's awesome. So when you tour now, and then we'll kind of wrap it up, but when you tour now, do you still like to tie one on?
Well, the thing is, I never drank before shows.
Yeah.
The one godsend for Laughing Buddha is when I did that class, they said never drink before shows. It becomes a bad habit.
And that just stuck in your head?
And it just stuck in my head.
That's good, because I used to get hammered and I'd be at a 5-minute mic and I'd do 12 minutes of an Arnold impression.
You're so bad.
I'd be wasted, like, what are we doing?
And everyone's like, get off the stage.
Yeah. And nobody, because I mean, even though I was fat, like nobody was going to like challenge, like no one's coming at, it's nerds. No one's going to be like,
no.
Hey, I know you tell the story about cutting your own face open, but we're gonna have to pull you off the stage.
Yeah.
So they would just let me go, and my cousin was like, because this is a brief stint. I lived in Oklahoma City, and he was trying to get me back into stand up, and he was like, "What have I done? Like, this was a horrible mistake."
You're like, no, it wasn't. I could be a good boy.
You never drank before shows.
Never drank before shows.
That's awesome.
But I would drink after.
Yeah.
I would have like a couple, and then go home and to my neighborhood bar where I lived. Literally a block away from.
Yeah.
And so I would go party
There's
with
so
my
many
friends
bars
and
in
then
New
go.
York.
Oh, yeah. And I was bartending. And so on that block, all the bartenders you showed up.
Yeah.
You knew each other.
Yeah,
and so you
everybody
get
knew,
free
yeah.
drinks. And
It's very
hang out.
incestuous how everyone
Yes.
kind of like.
100%. So, but I would never drink before shows. And now my shows just get later and later and later and later. And so now it's like, why am I going to drink at 3 a.m?
Yeah, that's
so I'll
true.
have a glass of wine, smoke 2 blunts or 2 hits.
2 blunts is a lot.
I know. I was like, actually, no, that sounds awful.
And then just go to bed.
Just go to bed. Yeah. And so I've actually become much healthier with my drinking. Instead of like binge drinking one night, I drink like the same amount over 2 weeks.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I'm it's much healthier now. But
Well, that's
because stand up saved my life. I'm joking.
It's so funny that was the last line you said. I say that all the time.
Yeah, it did in a way.
Yeah.
It saved my creative spirit.
Yeah.
I would say.
Well, it literally, because like I said, when I got sober, I was like, I'm gonna check out, and I've done shit like that before. So it was like one of those things where my sponsor's like, hey, let's pump the brakes.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
Why don't we find something for you?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then I got back into stand up, and I'm like, but I'm very much like, stand up saved my life.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. Plug everything one more time. The podcast.
Good Time Gal Pod, at Caitlin Peluffo, and my link tree.
The link tree. Check it out. And if you're in New York, you're at the Cellar all the time.
Yes, please come.
Stand-up-
Cellar and then New York Comedy Club. I'm there
yeah.
a bunch.
Perfect.
And same with Gotham. Those are my 3 mains.
Boom.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having
everybody
me.
for listening. This was a lot of fun.
This was so fun. Thank you so much.
Of course.
We did it.
We did it. At Brennan T Comedy on all social media, BrennanTComedy.com, and subscribe on Patreon, patreon.com/BrennanTassif, and we'll talk to y'all next week.